Hey guys, it's Jack. I wanted to let you know that we're starting a new push for subscriptions here on Human Events Daily. So make sure that when you're listening to this podcast, you hit subscribe, you download it, and you share it with 5 of your friends. Make sure they're all going and downloading as well, because we need to get the signal out as much as possible. Look, we've done so much over the past couple of years since this show started, and we're only going to do so much more. Let's get it. This is what happens when the fourth turning meets fifth generation warfare.
A commentator, international social media sensation, and former Navy intelligence veteran.
This is Human Events with your host, Jack Posobiec.
Christ is king.
We have some breaking news for you right now. This is from President Trump on Truth Social. Our wonderful White House press secretary and one of my most trusted aides, Caroline Leavitt, will be departing her role at the end of the month so that she can spend more time with her beautiful young children and family. A decision I totally understand and respect. Caroline will now be one of my top outside advisors and an influential voice within the Republican Party as we work to defy history and conclusively win the midterm elections.
This morning, questions continue over the fate of the Strait of Hormuz and a looming peace deal with Iran.
The president says cutting off Iran's oil revenue and enforcing new sanctions will bring Tehran back to the bargaining table. But some experts say that won't be easy because the Iranians are willing to wait. Pakistan continues to play a key role as a mediator and says the U.S. and Iran are close to a deal. Pakistan's interior minister is currently in Tehran for these talks. Now, the impact of the situation overseas has caused a 3-cent jump in the national average price for gas. That's coming at $4.07. A month ago, the average price was $3.87.
Here's the mail, it never fails. It makes me want to wag my tail. When it comes, I want to wail. Mail. Thanks, mailbox. We just got a letter. We just got a letter. We just got a letter. I wonder who it's from. Oh, it looks like my ballot. Brought to me by my Secretary of State. And with it, I can participate in democracy. Votes could do, we can't do.
Luigi Mangione is due back in court tomorrow for a special hearing in his federal case. The 28-year-old faces both federal and state charges in the 2024 killing of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson. Now, the prosecution and defense filed requests earlier this week for a conference in that case. Sources tell CBS News there may be a plea deal on the table.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome on board today's edition of Human Events Daily. We're here live, Real America's Voice, Washington, D.C. Today is August 13th, 2026, Anno Domini. And late breaking news that just came out right before we went to show today. Luigi Mangione, the assassin in New York City, big pharma assassin, healthcare assassin, whatever you want to call him. He may be receiving a plea deal tomorrow in his federal case. Luigi Mangione, a guy who's on video stalking and assassinating an innocent man, a father, a husband, a Christian, a white Christian, successful man on the streets of New York City. And they're going to give this freak a plea deal? Are you kidding me? This is ridiculous. This is absolutely ridiculous. People over at SDNY need to get their heads on straight. What are you doing in the Southern District up there? You don't make a plea deal with a psycho assassin like this. Absolutely not. No, you see it to trial. You see it all the way to trial. And oh, by the way, if you're looking at different pieces of it, well, then you know what? Hit him with the superseding indictment if you've got some questions about the trial. This is ridiculous. You can't allow this type of cancer to fester in our society. You cannot suffer an assassin to live. Understand that this will breed more assassinations and more people will die if you don't go as hard at Luigi Mangione as you possibly can. I'm being completely serious here. You can't let these people off the hook. You can't sit there and say, and first of all, by the way, depriving us of a trial, because keep in mind, if he takes a plea deal here, there's now people saying that if the feds give him a plea deal, then that might trigger double jeopardy laws on the state side. So now he's got no state charges either? This is ridiculous. What are they doing? Who is running SDNY right now? Seriously. It's a joke. It's an absolute joke. He walks up right behind him in a targeted assassination. This wasn't, look, and, you know, as horrific as, what's the other trial that's going on right now? It's the Lindsay Clancy run, right? The pharma, and she was on antidepressants and Seroquel and all these other things, SSRIs, right? I could understand, right? I don't like that trial, but I could understand, right? She needs to be locked up for the rest of her life. But I could understand not giving her the death penalty. I can understand that. But this, a targeted, cold-blooded murder, rage, envy, resentment, and you're going to give this freak a plea deal. Do you have any idea how stupid that is? Do you have any idea how moronic that is? These people want to kill us. The children of Luigi are multiplying. The children of Luigi are multiplying. That's why you need to go as hard as possible. As hard as possible. And to give him a plea deal. Get him out of 2 trials. One at the state level, one at the federal level. It's a disgrace. It's an absolute disgrace. And I know people are gonna call me, they're text me, oh, Poso, you know, you can't tell with the jury, you can't deal with it. Well, then charge him in another jurisdiction. Charge him in Florida. Do what you have to do to put him away. Send him to Bukele. I don't care. The cancer needs to be eradicated. You can't make nice with evil. Be right back. Human Events Daily.
And Jack, where's Jack? Where's Jack? Where is he? Jack, I want to see you. Great job, Jack. Thank you. What a job you do. You know, we have an incredible thing. We're always talking about the fake news and the bad, but we have guys, and these are the guys who should be getting Pulitzers.
All right, folks, Jack Posobiec back live, Human Events Daily, Real America's Voice. And folks, most people have no idea how much of their personal information is sitting online. Exposed, easy to find, your name, your home address, your phone number, your email, your family members, past addresses, even data tied to old data breaches can often be pulled up in just a few clicks. That information is collected, packaged, and posted by hundreds of data broker websites. And unless you take steps to remove it, it can stay out there indefinitely. For someone with bad intentions, those details can become a roadmap. Where you live, who you're connected to, and how to reach you. If you're politically active, work in media, run a business, or simply want to protect your family's privacy, this is worth taking seriously. And that's where Patriot Protect comes in. Patriot Protect works to remove your personal information from data broker sites, helping make you far more difficult to locate online before someone can misuse that information. Because the cost of one phone scam, identity theft incident, or targeted harassment campaign can add up fast. Taking control of your privacy is a lot less expensive. Go to patriot-protect.com/POSO and use promo code POSO to save 15%. patriotprotect.com/POSO. Take back control of your privacy, add some digital camouflage to your life, and make yourself much harder to find online. Ladies and gentlemen, our next guest, the People's Pundit, Rich Barris. Rich, I got to get your reaction to this. I know you and Lysek have the new book, Burn It Down. Luigi Mangione, he's the face of those types of politics. What is the Southern District of New York thinking, making a plea deal with this monster?
Jack, did they forget their Cicero? I mean, I thought this was basic, the laws kind of stuff. I mean, this is the problem when the deterioration of Western society and philosophy starts to take root in actually how you govern a society's laws and how you prosecute and implement those laws and, of course, hold people accountable for breaking them is a reflection of that society's values. And I know they already took it off the table, but if there was ever cases where capital punishment is required or warranted, it's these cases. You have to make a statement to society that this is not okay. Political assassinations are not okay. I mean, to give a plea deal to this guy sends not only, it's the worst message at the worst possible time to send, Jack.
No, it is the worst possible message, but also when you say it's the worst possible time, walk us through that, because here's what I kept saying. What I'm saying is, if you do not throw the book at these freaks, at these reprobates, at these monsters, then the children of Luigi will multiply, because they're going to say Luigi did it and he got away with it.
And he got away with it, and he got notoriety for it. And who knows, maybe even 5 years down the road, because of a chilling effect, politicians, they get cold feet or weak in the knees. So maybe actually it has the effect that it was intended to have. And that is ultimately the problem. That's why the response that society gives must be strong. It must rebuke it, and it must punish them to the fullest extent of the law. Look, this is real talk now. The DSA is a fanatic, radical, insurgent movement in this country. These are people who we've studied. You've seen the study. We have done this more than I think anybody else on political violence. These people do not know how to separate words from actions. Violence is in your speech to these people. Violence is not only in your actions or physical contact. They have a totally different way to look at things. That old expression when we were growing up, sticks and stones may break your bones, but names will never hurt you. They don't even understand that. They can't separate the two. So we have to, collectively, as a society, punish the people who do things like this, and punish them to the point where you deter, Jack, where you give people pause before they ever try to do something like this again. This is insane.
And folks, I'm pulling it up right now. The Southern District of New York, here's their phone number: 212-637-2200. 212-637-2200. Give them a call right now. Say no plea deals for Luigi Mangione. No plea deals with evil. You do not make peace with evil. You crush it. You crush it. It's really as simple as that. Rich, Charlie Kirk asked me one time. He said, Jack, how many Bolsheviks were there at, in the beginning? I said about 1,000 maybe. Give or take. And he said, how many people were in Russia? I said, millions. It's the Russian Empire, right? It's tens of millions. And he said, how could such a few people take over a country like that? And I said, Charlie, they didn't take it seriously. They didn't take it seriously. The same way that they are not taking Mangione seriously. They are not taking the threat of political assassination. You got the President of the United States having to play the shell game with, whack-a-mole with what plane he's on, because they're so worried about assassination threats. And then you're going to have an assassin like this and make a deal with him? Are you serious right now? Rich, these people, they want to act like the socialist revolution isn't actually coming. They think, oh, if we can make a deal, then maybe they'll be nice, and maybe they'll see that we're not so bad.
Yeah, they'll play nice.
No, they will kill every single one of us given the choice. And the results in Wisconsin, by the way, that wasn't because people aren't on board with the DSA. I think that was because she was a bad candidate. She had no charisma. The way she answered questions was dumb. She looked stupid. She looked like a deer caught in the headlights every single time they asked her a question about anything, not just the tweets, anything. That's why they went with the other guy, and now they're playing this whole real wokeness was woke one, and that was crazy. Now woke two is going to be so much. They're just getting quieter about it. They're going to get quieter about it. They're going to listen to the old Barack Obama, style saying no, it's not redistribution, it's reinvestment, and we're not going to say defund the police. We're going to say fund community services. It's the same things, Rich. Why aren't they listening?
Jack, I had a response to Mark Penn's take after Wisconsin, after this race that everyone thought Hong had in the bag. And this is the big part that he's missing, and I want others to understand. Again, we just put out the other day, along with that response, the demographics of democratic socialism. The truth is, this party is a majority socialist party. The reason why some of these candidates aren't doing as well as some of the polls expected, ground game is totally different. They have no ground game right now, and that's a big deal, so pay attention to that. But really what it comes down to is after Maine, when Graham Plattner won, Democrats, the establishment in the Democratic Party, got smarter, and they started putting big money behind these establishment candidates, but not only that, big money on the ground. And the DSA and the left, they do not have the infrastructure yet, like a James Clyburn who can go into Detroit, even though he's from South Carolina, and say, do me a favor, deliver the black precincts big for me for Haley Stevens. We need you to do that, which can really complicate the ground game in the polls. And of course, we all know Democrats cheat and play games. Let's call it for what it is. They're willing to cheat to stop the DSA candidates right now. But the reason they were able to pull some of this off with Hong is because there's the electability argument that they have been feeding the Democratic voters for years. And we saw this even going back to when Bernie Sanders, again, had it taken from him in 2020. It's not that the Democratic voter didn't agree with Bernie Sanders. It's that Barack Obama's grand plan, which was to convince the Democratic primary electorate that he's unelectable, works still. And it worked with Haley Stevens almost. It worked on Hong, right? So this is what we're seeing. These Democrats stop believing in that argument, and when will that be? When the DSA starts running better candidates. El Sayed was a better candidate. You and I see through him, but he's good at what he does on the ground, even though he's a Barack Obama copy, which, by the way, the behavior panel did a whole thing on what you and I were talking about.
Oh,
it's a mimic of Barack Obama.
He's
mimicking Barack Obama.
Just so folks know, so Rich and I, we did this event with the behavioral panel guys, and funny enough, I didn't even realize that one of the guys on there actually wasn't, ships in the night, but we had
small world, brother.
A bunch of us had been either at the same schools, or I guess Chase Hughes and myself were actually at Gitmo at the same time, but we were in different parts of the base. We kind of overlapped for a couple of weeks, and we're gonna start doing some more stuff with those guys. But Rich, that's exactly right, because they're copying the mannerisms. They say things one way, and then they pause, and then they say it again.
Brother,
welcome to Human Events Daily with Jack Posobiec and the People's Pundit, Rich Barris.
Scott Hughes just was on Newsmax, and they were doing this, and it's like, you will compare El Sayed to Barack Obama, and he showed this to the Newsmax viewers. It's exactly what we were saying, which is that he's copying Barack Obama. And this is the danger, though. Eventually, the DSA will get smarter, and their candidates will get better. And we might not like Zohran Mamdani, right? We may not agree with a single thing he says, but he's a talented communicator. El Sayed, same thing. He was a talented communicator. Hong was not. Hong was not really good at this. So, that's good for a point here, a point there.
In the wrestling world, they would say she was terrible on the stick. She was terrible on the stick.
Terrible on the stick.
You gotta be able to do it with the camera. You gotta be able to do it on the mic. You gotta be quick on your feet in the interview. She didn't have any of that. These guys, because they are creatures of social media. They're theater. Many of them are failed theater kids. Obviously, we know that in Mandani's case. Doesn't surprise me at all that Syed is doing these obviously gay sketches and skits that he's putting out with Taylor Swift and Blue's Clues and all the rest. And so,
brother, going to bar mitzvahs, I love the Jewish people, and I can't wait to attend more bar mitzvahs. Are you kidding me?
I actually hadn't seen that one.
Okay. It's delicious.
You got to be kidding. The guy's a head case. He's lighting the loafers. There's no question. He's not beating the allegations. Abdul, you're not beating the allegations. Rich, one more minute though. Walk me through the danger of Republicans writing off these new DSA tactics.
Yeah. Well, the scary part, and it's just the truth, but the scary part is that they are speaking to very real needs and very real concerns and very real fears and hopes that the American electorate is marinating on right now, and unfortunately the right is not addressing. So listen, I really have been trying to caution the right from going and creating what are effectively safe spaces. You guys built safe spaces for yourselves for the last year and a half. Get out of them now. Are you a bunch of beta little biatches on a college campus somewhere? You got a microaggression that you got to deal with? This is a real threat. Get yourself out of the safe space, and let's deal with it and fight it back.
Where can they follow you?
We're everywhere, as always, coming in on the gram, at Peoples_Pundit, and it's, of course, on Locals, brother, peoplespundit.locals.com.
He's coming in hot on the gram, and Rich Barris knows Gator. Right back, Jack Posobiec. Senator Ron Johnson joins us.
They talk about influencers. These are influencers, and they're friends of mine. Jack Posobiec. Where's Jack? Jack, he's done a great job.
All right, folks, Jack Posobiec. We are back live here, Human Events Daily, Real America's Voice. Now, folks know that last week we saw just an incredible moment, this hearing, showdown really, of Anthony Fauci, Dr. Fauci, and the United States Senate, where he's finally was at least faced with questions. He refused to answer those questions. We got no answers from him, but we do also now have text messages from him, and they are beginning to pour out more and more. And one of the absolute heroes in this fight for medical freedom and the truth about COVID, the truth about the vaccines, is Senator Ron Johnson, who joins us now. Senator, how are you?
Doing well, Jack. How about yourself?
Well, I'm doing well, but I look at some of these hearings, I look at some of the text messages that's come out, and every time I think that it's not going to get worse, somehow we get information that actually doesn't just confirm our worst fears, it actually pushes the bar even further and further. Walk us through what it was like being in that hearing with Dr. Fauci.
Well, we weren't quite sure whether he was going to answer questions or not. I kind of had there was a side bet in my office. Only one person thought he would answer questions. Most of them thought he'd take the fifth, which is what he did. So, we senators, you could tell, we were very well prepared, kind of organized in terms of this is the subject you're going to focus on. You kind of saw that as we went down the dais. For my part, what I turned my multiple questions into is just a few to highlight what the mainstream media, the legacy media, is completely ignored. And it's the fact that Peter Marks was warned on March 1st of 2021 that the algorithm they were using to analyze variants was going to hide safety signals. 26 days later, senior FDA officials were using a new algorithm were showing dozens of safety signals, including sudden cardiac death, pulmonary infarction, which Anthony Fauci suffered from in June of 2021, different types of stroke. Also revealed, I wanted to point out, is that in March of 2021, somebody in NIH, a group of scientists, doctors, were diagnosing and treating people with injection injuries. And yet they denied it all. They continue to deny them. I mean, right now, with the latest revelations of the one text chain that we released where Anthony Fauci is expressing concern about the cytokine storm after the second dose, I'd never heard of that. But because of that, thinking that, theorizing that could lead to miscarriages. And of course, you've got Dr. James Thorpe and others who've been delving into that, and in their practice, certainly seeing real problems with the women's health and pregnancy and the COVID shot. But finally, the mainstream media, because it's associated with Anthony Fauci, is forced to cover that text. They've completely ignored what's a much larger bombshell revelation of all these safety signals that Peter Marks and people inside FDA and CDC completely hid, covered up from public view. But because of Fauci, at least they're concentrating on miscarriages. What's interesting about the current debate, again, I mentioned Dr. James Thorpe's evaluation of Tom Shimbakuro, CDC guy, they published in the New England Journal of Medicine. The data is a mess. You cannot in any way, shape, or form figure out what the true miscarriage rate was. So you got multiple interpretations of it. But because I mentioned the James Thorpe, and I accurately relayed what James Thorpe found in an open letter to the American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists, now I'm just being fact-checked. All the fact-checkers who are Fauci apologists are focusing on, well, it really wasn't 82%. Nobody can tell you what the miscarriage rate was because, let's face it, they were not surveilling for safety. What I've uncovered in my investigations, in our interviews with people like Tom Shimbakuro, Dr. John Su, we'll continue these interviews, they basically turned a blind eye toward all the reports deluging VAERS. We're up to 1.7 million adverse events, over 30,000 deaths.
And Senator, and this is try to explain to, because we have a lot of Maha moms who watch, including my wife, and you've met Tanya many times, and why do we have text messages from I'm thinking of the other killers, right? From Dr. Anthony Fauci, and in private, where he's talking about miscarriage rates, but then publicly he's on TV saying that it doesn't exist and it's not true.
Because they had an agenda I think that Fauci not only probably created the pandemic with his gain of function, but he was hoping for one. In October 2019, on stage with Rick Bright, they were bemoaning that we don't have a universal vaccination campaign with the flu. It's going to take a pandemic. Well, they got it. And when they got that pandemic, I think they became singularly focused on first covering up his gain of function involvement in probably creating it, but then secondly, pushing a universal vaccination program on the globe, worldwide. And by the way, this is not a vaccine. This is an experimental gene therapy. That's what this is. It's not a vaccine. And so that is what they want to do. You know, Anthony Fauci, I'm sure, the megalomaniacal narcissist he is, he wanted to be viewed as another Jonas Salk, right? So they were pushing this. They refused to look at, as I said, the deluge of reports flooding the VAERS, the permanent disabilities, the deaths, possible miscarriages. So they covered it up. We have text or email after email. People say, well, you know, when they're looking at myocarditis or they're looking at ischemic stroke in people over 65, say, well, you know, understand the boss, Biden, really wants to push these boosters. We've got to be very careful with this because we don't want to create vaccine hesitancy. So it was always about a universal vaccination program, pushing this to billions of people around the globe, establishing the mRNA platform as the go-to platform now for future vaccines, particularly for flu. Now, the CDC the FDA just approved an mRNA-based flu vaccine for Moderna. And I know I have so much to tell you. The normal flu vaccine has a serious adverse event rate of 2.6%. Now, do you know what a serious adverse event is? It's death, a condition that could cause immediate death. It's permanent disability. It's birth defect. That's what a serious adverse event. 2.6%.
Senator, we've got a quick break coming up here, and I don't want to hold you over because this is very serious. This is about families that were ripped apart. This is about children who were not born, and it's about a complete severing of the trust between people and their government. And it really does, and there's more people involved, to be sure. But Dr. Anthony Fauci absolutely is the face of it. We'll be right back with more here, Real America's Voice, Senator Ron Johnson.
Communist on the faculty of one university is one communist too many. One communist among the American advisors at Yalta was one communist too many.
However, when you look at the unvaccinated versus the vaccinated, there is absolutely no increased risk of that. So because of that, the CDC and the ACOG, the American College of Obstetrics and Gynecology, who used to say it is okay for pregnant women to get vaccinated, to change now and say it is recommended that pregnant women get vaccinated. So it's really one of those things that's kind of not a close call. It really is pretty clear that pregnant women should get vaccinated.
The Jack Posobiec here, back, Real America's Voice, Human Events Daily. We're on with Senator Ron Johnson. And Senator, that was Anthony Fauci about 5 years ago now, and he's talking about how important it is. It's so important. He's talking with all the authority of the world right there. We turned over our entire country to this guy during COVID, and he's telling everyone that it's so important that pregnant women get the vax. He's saying that publicly, while privately he was saying that there were adverse concerns about miscarriage rates. How can something like this occur in our country?
Well, he was lying through his teeth, and he's being propped up by the legacy media who've been captured by Big Pharma. But it was abundantly clear that pregnant women should not have got the experimental genetic therapy. We tell them, don't have a glass of wine, don't eat sushi, but hey, experimental gene therapy that we're being deluged with adverse event reports, death, permanent disability. We know that this thing biodistributes all over the body, can actually penetrate and break the placenta barrier. The safety signals or red flags were screaming at them. They chose to close their eyes. And when they were made aware of them, they went and they said the exact same opposite thing in the media. And again, I really appreciate the fact that now the media is forced to cover this text they released about Anthony Fauci. But as we were saying off air, I have far more egregious examples of the cover-up of even more significant safety signals. As I said, sudden cardiac death, pulmonary infarction, different types of strokes. We're up to over 39,000 deaths worldwide on VAERS. 24% of those deaths occurred within 2 days of injection. And we know that VAERS reports about 1% of adverse events. So the damage was massive. It continues to be covered up. This is just a crack in the dike right now in terms of what the mainstream media, the pharmaceutical companies, our medical establishment have been holding back, what they've been covering up for 5 or 6 years.
Well, and it's just this arrogance, right? The vanity, the pride. I am the science. And how many times did we hear that? I am the science and they are the misinformation. Meanwhile, in his private chats and messages, all he's talking about is the misinformation, but the actual threats and the dangers and the risks that he was publicly dismissing as misinformation. He had other officials and other doctors coming to him asking him about the very same things that he was dismissing on air. And this is something where I think a lot of Americans, myself included, feel that there's debt, that there is a debt that needs to be paid back to the American people, to these families, to our country. That's why I think people say, oh, why are you talking about Fauci? Because of the damage and the cost that he inflicted on us.
He was the leader of the pack, not just in America, globally. It was because of his lies, his cover-up. And again, there are a lot more people involved, and those are people we're investigating as well. But because of those lies, we had these vaccine mandates, across the world. I mean, the loss of freedom, the shutdowns of the economy, when he admitted to his diary that, this is probably going to be double a bad flu season. Then he went out and said, no, it's 10 times worse, so we could gain control. Again, this is diabolical. The destruction, the number of lives lost because of the lies, Anthony Fauci, and again, a bunch of other people. Right now, the mainstream media is not paying attention to my other reports, to the Tom Shimbakuros, the Peter Marks. There's a lot of them involved and implicated. Walensky, Vivek Murthy. Again, they were all lying. Now, some of them had more information than others, but again, I was warned very early on. It was just from a non-doctor, layman's point of view, there was no way I was ever going to subject myself to experimental gene therapy, which is why I was watching this stuff so closely. But in our investigations and these interviews with the people who were in charge of vaccine safety, I was looking at this a lot closer than they were. They literally closed their eyes. They didn't want to see it. When Peter Marks was warned that their algorithm was going to cover up safety signals, they continue to use that same algorithm, even though they were presented one that showed all kinds of safety signals. Again, and the media has not covered that. They've buried that. I was forced to self-publish an 800-word op-ed because no major newspaper would take my op-ed describing my 38-page report. So again, what Anthony Fauci done is unforgivable. I mean, how many little babies were not born because of miscarriage, because of that injection? I don't know. But it actually is a minor cover-up compared to the cover-up of Peter Marks and others across the board with all these injection injuries. And why is this so important? Well, first of all, we don't want this to happen again the next time. But because they're not acknowledging injection injuries, the people suffering from them cannot get treated. They don't even have an ICD code for doctors to bill for it. So doctors they tell these women who've had their lives destroyed, oh, it's all in your head. Little girl, it's just all in your head. I mean, it's sick. It is sick what has happened in this country. And finally, the mainstream media is looking at one person, Anthony Fauci, but Jack, they're covering up for him. I mean, I'm getting deluged with fact checks now from Fauci apologists trying to nitpick, in any part of this story. It's just sick what's happening right now in the mainstream media. But at least it's now being debated. At least people are aware of the fact that he knew that miscarriage was certainly a concern and a possibility. And the data coming out, from practitioners, it was a real problem, even though they're doing everything they can to continue to cover it up.
Well, and Senator, this is why, so many folks, and whenever we talk about this issue, they say, what can we do? Can anything be done for accountability here? Because if we don't get accountability, there is no accountability at all, then what's to stop the next Fauci from doing it all over again? And so I'll ask you that question because I know that's the number one question we always get from the audience.
So understand that for 4 years when I was doing oversight, writing 70 different letters to the Biden administration, we never got anything. They would take a year to give us a non-response response to our letters. It was only with President Trump appointing Bobby Kennedy, who has been vilified as being an anti-vaxxer and ridiculed in the media. He continues to be vilified by even members of the Senate, Republicans. Only because his commitment to radical transparency are we now getting the diary and his phone and these devices and 11 million pages so I could uncover, like say, an even bigger cover-up of all these safety signals on the part of Peter Marks. So I trust me, nobody can out-frustrate me. But we've only just gotten the documents. We're only now starting to, a true investigation. We could have hauled these people before Congress and had them testify. They would have run circles around us because we didn't know what pulled off. They could lie through their teeth. Now we have the documents. They've got to answer for it. And once we have the documents, once we call them in to answer for it, even though Anthony Fauci said, I'm not afraid of congressional oversight. I'm having to talk to any oversight committee. I have nothing to hide. All of a sudden, he had a lot to hide, and he failed to answer the questions and showed not only contempt for Congress, but gross contempt for the American public.
No, it's exactly right. And so when we look at this contempt, have you heard anything? Now, we know that, of course, the vote was made. It was passed the Department of Justice. Have you heard anything going forward as to whether or not the wheels are in motion? We know Todd Blanche was just confirmed, was sworn in as Attorney General. He's hit the ground running on a number of things, but we don't know yet what the status of that referral for Dr. Fauci is.
Yeah, I haven't heard anything from Todd Blanche myself. I have talked to the Florida Attorney General. I know he's looking into this thing. I know Coach Tuberville, probably the next governor of Alabama, has stated that he'd like to see Anthony Fauci in court every day for the rest of his life. So there will be further investigations. And again, Jack, I just have to address the frustration of your audience. We just got the documents. We're going to start revealing more and more things. Again, 34,000 texts. Here's a little interesting item. He only had 3 contacts in his contact list. The other 900 numbers were just phone number. And anybody who texts realizes, no, as soon as you get a text from somebody, you put them in your contact list so you know who that text is from. So obviously he deleted, or somebody deleted his contact number. So I don't know what other deletions were occurring in there. We know that people deleted things. Remember, I mentioned Tom Shimabukuro, the CDC head of safety surveillance. On the advice of HHS counsel, he deleted emails from his devices. But even worse, now we're finding out that when we tried to recover those off of the server, they were deleted on the server as well, indicating greater conspiracy.
That's absolutely horrific. Folks, please, sorry, Senator, we're just out of time, the merciless clock. Please go and follow Senator Ron Johnson. He's been an absolute champion and a patriot on this issue. Thank you, Senator.
Sure.
We're going to call this the Jack Posobiec Appreciation Hour. I can say confidently, I think Josh Shapiro would be the vice presidential nominee if it wasn't for Jack Posobiec. And that is, I'll be honest.
All right, folks, Jack Posobiec, we are back live, Human Events Daily here. And folks, in a world that's constantly changing, some things never should. Faith, family, freedom, the values you choose to live by, even your wireless provider can reflect those values. And that's what Patriot Mobile has stood for more than 12 years. They serve Americans who want their dollars supporting the Christian conservative movement and organizations defending faith, family, and freedom. Making the switch is simple. Keep your number, keep your phone, or upgrade to a new device. Their 100% U.S.-based customer support team can have you connected in minutes. If you're still paying off your current phone, they can even help with a contract buyout. Patriot Mobile also gives you premium priority access across all 3 major U.S. networks, so you get dependable nationwide coverage without compromising your principles. If it matters who you trust with your service and where your money goes, it's time to make the switch. Go to patriotmobile.com/POSO or give them a call, 972-PATRIOT. Use promo code POSO to get a free month of service. That's patriotmobile.com/POSO or call 972-PATRIOT. Make the switch today. Well, today is a little bit of a bittersweet day here on Human Events Daily here in studio because producer Ellis, it's her last day on the show. She was with us for the summer. She came on air. You did a ton of stories. You're from Minnesota originally. And did you ever think that Minnesota would become such an epicenter of the political universe?
I had no idea. I mean, you grow up in Minnesota. You're just like, hey, it's cool. People know us for being the land of 10,000 lakes, being the land of Paul Bunyan and lumberjacks and whatnot.
Well, and then Fargo,
right?
Movie.
The movie Fargo, we're known for that. But, being cold all the time, -30s in the winter. But I didn't know that Minnesota would be such a political hot point.
Well, you go the past couple of years, right? You go back to George Floyd, right?
Course,
and Derek
yes.
Chauvin take place 2020. Then the entire riots of 2020. Then fast forward to 2024. Tim Walz becomes the vice presidential pick.
Right.
Now we've got ICE going on. So Renee Good, Alex Preddy, just all of these things keep bringing us back.
Don't forget the fraud. Don't forget the
Somalian fraud. I'm already missing
Yes.
things, right? The Somalian fraud that we went out and covered with Secretary Bessent. So it's a constant stream of Minnesota. So even though today's your last day, you keep your camera ready because every time we need someone, if we have the great Liz Collin over at Alpha News, but if we need someone else, we may have to be calling on you in the future.
I'm ready. I'll keep my camera ready for him.
So what is it like? Interning at Human Events Daily?
It's been awesome. I did not expect. You go in and you kind of have this idea in your mind of what political news broadcasting is going to be, and then you just go in and it's totally different. I came in not necessarily knowing what I wanted to do. I didn't know. I was like, I like journalism, I like the news, I like, America, politics, but I didn't really know what that was going to look like for me. So when this opportunity came up, I was like, hey, let's do it. Let's get some experience. And it's been awesome. It's been super cool to be able to be right in the middle of things here in Washington, D.C. and especially this summer of all summers with America 250. There's a lot going on in the world right now. There's a lot of uncertainty in our own country. And so to be able to kind of be the voice of truth and help you and the team really get that information out to people has been really, really special.
Well, I want to let you know that you've done an incredible job. The entire team is like, why isn't she staying? You need to make her some offers, but I understand that you're headed somewhere, and so we'll don't worry, you'll call us in 6 months. It'll be fine. Totally fine. And people don't realize how much goes into this. We do a lot of production, and I think people think it all just kind of appears. I call for a clip, or we're talking about the Strait of Hormuz, and a map pops up. But all of that is time, and yeah, we're looking at ways to automate every day, AI, different things. But it still comes down to and our cold opens, which you have been phenomenal for helping with, by the way.
Yeah, the cold open has been fun. It's been a really good way of keeping up with the news for myself because, there's so much going on. And then just being able to help you guys kind of have a framework for what to talk about.
And we got you to the White House one day.
Yeah, that was really cool.
So that was your first time getting to see the president up close and personal. How was that?
That was really cool. He just came, you have this image of Trump in your mind when you think of America and American politics and whatnot, but he's a real person. And then he came out and he started talking to people and he had fun. I think that's the thing about Trump is that people give him a lot of flack, but he just likes to have fun. I think it's fun for him to just go out, talk to people, get to know people. So yeah, that was really cool.
I've always said that about him as well, and I appreciate that you picked up on that. It's very insightful because whenever you see him in person, you can tell he says things. He's got a little smirk on his face, a little twinkle in his eye, and they'll twist so many different things. And even if you're someone who doesn't like the president, if you're someone who disagrees with his politics, okay, sure, fine. It's a free country, right? But if you're reporting something that he said, do it accurately.
Mm-hmm.
Just do it accurately. If he's using sarcasm, say that he's using sarcasm.
Right.
If you're writing a report, because I feel like that so much of our discourse today gets ruined because they miss things like that.
Yeah, for sure. And I think too that,
And possibly deliberately.
Yeah, of course. And I think too, like, people, and I've talked to a lot of people, like, foreign people from my hometown in Minnesota, people all over the place, and they're just like, isn't it stressful? Isn't everything so terrible all the time? And I was like, things are hard. There are a lot of unknowns in the future, but I think that when you got a president like Trump, like at least he keeps it entertaining. Like
he sure does.
He sure likes to entertain.
It's gonna when this era is done, it's gonna. I hope it doesn't go back to be boring. I really hope it doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
But and you also got to meet Caroline Levitt.
I did,
and of
yes.
course, so she's kind of the big news of the last 24 hours, and it's interesting because I remember when she came over and again, she just walked right up to us when we were there. How you doing? And I remember I introduced you, and she was just so happy to meet you.
Yeah, she was. It was kind of funny too because you pointed her out and you said, "Oh, there's Caroline Levitt," and I was like, "Oh, that's cool." And then 30 seconds later, she was by our side. I was like, "Oh, I'm meeting Caroline Levitt now. I'm not just seeing Caroline Levitt."
That's what it's like.
That was cool. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's what it's like. And I will say just again, we talked about the difference of meeting someone in person, and that's why it's so important in this business, I think, to try to meet people and make those connections, those real human connections. I kind of got a sense that she was thinking about her kids.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of got that sense that she was there, she was doing the job, and was doing a great job, but I could get a sense that maybe that day, and I don't know, that something like, her mind seemed to be at home.
Yeah, for sure.
And thinking about those babies, and it's tough coming back. I think that was one of her first days back, and so I'll just put it this way: having that, seeing the headline come out yesterday with the president's Truth Social, I wasn't that surprised because we had that moment.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think that it's really for her. She's very, very open about how important her family is, and White House press secretary has got to be one of the hardest jobs in the world. But the most important job in the world is for her to be with her family and be able to raise her children. So I'm really happy that she was able to have the experience, but that she has a supportive administration that's allowing her to, be a mom and just take a step back.
Tell us, we've got a minute left. Tell us how we found you. Tell us how you got here. Walk us through that process just a little bit. Where can people go if they want to learn about getting involved in these types of programs?
Yeah, so I applied for a program called NJC, the National Journalism Center with the Young America's Foundation. And what they do is they take a cohort of students. We have 35 this year, and they'll bring them to Washington, D.C., put some of them up in free housing, and they'll put you in a news outlet. So I got placed here at Human Events Daily because I told them I wanted to learn more about broadcast news and political media. And it's been a really great experience.
And Ellis, before you go, we're going to miss you a lot, and I got something for you. Okay. And so we got 2 copies of the books.
Thank you.
These are for you, and
awesome.
Some messages to you, and just saying thank you for being here and for doing what you did. And I hope to see you again. Don't be a stranger.
Oh, I won't be. Thank you so much,
God bless
Jack.
you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, as always, you have my permission to lay ashore.